That may be a while.
Yeah, exactly.
Camera started, Dave.
Ready? All right, 6 p.m. We'll call the regular village board meeting to all order. If you'd all please join me in a moment of silence. The Pledge of Allegiance. The Pledge of Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, can you take the roll, please?
Trustee Mann, Trustee Mao, Trustee Charo, Trustee Gerger,
Here.
Trustee Detmer.
Here.
Trustee Churchill.
Here.
President Kinsey.
Present. Any public announcements this evening? Hearing none. Any public comments regarding agenda topics?
It was not.
Not for the agenda topic, was it? Yeah.
Okay. Entertain a motion to put the consent agenda on the table. Trustee Charles has made a motion of a second.
Second.
Second by Trustee Churchill. Discussions or questions regarding the warrants or the minutes? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you take the roll?
Trustee Charo. Yes. Trustee Gerger.
Yes.
Trustee Detmer.
Yes.
Trustee Churchill.
Yes.
No other business under new business and ordinance approving a right-of-way encroachment permit and an encroachment agreement for the Apple Barn. Get a motion to bring this to the floor.
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Gerger, second.
Second.
Second by Trustee Detmers.
Can I go over that?
Yeah, you agree. Which one?
The Apple Barn property is in the city of Springfield, but the road that's in front of there is Chatham's responsibility. They were splitting the property from the house and the business so that she could sell the business to employees that work there and sell the house to someone else. When they go to do lot splits like that, the county, who acts as our plat officer, calls, says, "Is there anything you need?" We did not have 60 foot of right of way on that side of the road along there. We did next to Avenal, and we did on the other side of the road, but because that's been there so long, we've never been able to acquire that. So I asked if we could get an additional 25 feet that would put us at 60 feet that would match everything west of there. And they agreed to it. But when they agreed to it, the greenhouse that's out there, 2 feet of it is in that right of way. So they're giving us the right of way, 25 feet. And in turn, we're going to give them a variance to allow for that greenhouse to be in that right of way until they either have to take it down, replace it, or anything like that. They can't put it back to there, but they can temporarily leave it there because we're not going to widen the road for a while, so we don't really need it. And that's what I worked with Greg, and we came up with it that we have to give them a variance after they've given it to us. So that's what you're voting on tonight.
Makes sense to everybody. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you take the vote?
Trustee Charo. Yes. Trustee Gerger.
Yes.
Trustee Detmer.
Yes.
Trustee Churchill.
Yes.
Any public comments on other village business?
Yes, there was. There was two, and one question was from Bonnie Billick.
Let me ask that one.
You what?
Let me ask
Oh,
that.
yeah, you can, yes.
Yeah, because I told her I would.
Oh, yes.
How many trustees have dogs?
Have dogs?
Yes.
I'm not a trustee.
Mine passed away recently.
So three.
3 out of the 4 that are 5 that are here. What was the other one?
This is,
Oh, the skateboard park.
yes, a president named Joe Finney sent us an email and it says, "Hello, this is Joe Finney. I'm an 8th grade student at GMS. I'm speaking because I would like a safe place to skateboard publicly in Chatham. I think that a skate park or something like ramps and rails would be great for kids to get outside and learn something new. There are other communities like Jacksonville, Taylorville, Bloomington, Springfield, Peoria, Champaign, Litchfield, Pekin, Alton, Normal, and Belleville that have public skate parks available. I also think that a place in South Park would be ideal, specifically the large concrete slab by the baseball diamonds. I realize that there are cost concerns, however, I believe this would be a big benefit to the community. I also speak for others that would like this idea to become a reality. Also, who would I speak to specifically about this issue? Thanks for your time. Sincerely, Joe Finney." And I responded to him that I would email him back with a contact person after bringing this to the board.
Parks guy.
You're welcome to give him money. Yep.
Okay, thanks, Dewey.
That was an 8th grader?
Yes.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yes, and so that was both of the public comments we got emailed in.
F-I-N-N-E.
Finney.
In any way. Excellent. Any other public comments on any village business?
What was the dog question for? Did she have a follow-up
No,
question?
that was it. She just wanted to know how many trustees
Have dogs.
had dogs.
All right.
There.
Brian might have one.
Hmm?
Yeah, Brian has dogs.
Yeah, I've got 2.
I don't think Matt does.
A couple weeks ago, I would have been between dogs.
Oh, yeah, you just got it.
Now he's in puppy.
All right. Schedule of meetings has the planning commission at 6 p.m. here, January 21st. Village board, 6 p.m., January 26th. Utility oversight subcommittee, 6 p.m., February 8th. Public properties recreation, March 8th, 2021. During the board, we have no need for closed session. We got 10 minutes here. Kevin, will you guys, do you want to make your presentation under public comments in the board meetings? Otherwise, we're going to sit here between 10 minutes of public silence. I think that fits fine. Are you okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
So let's have you guys do that. We'll just slide you in here. Otherwise, our schedule doesn't have our next meeting start until 6:15.
The risk of touching, can all of you hear me clearly on this?
We can, but the people that are listening
Yeah, I understand.
have a more difficult time if you're not into it.
First of all, while Mike is passing this around, we appreciate the opportunity to come meet with you tonight. My name is Kevin Gaden. I'm the CEO of the Illinois Municipal Electric Agency in Springfield. And I'm also, my family and I are members of the Village of Chatham as well. I've got kids and grandkids who go to the schools here as well. What I brought with me tonight, my assistant Mike here, who's handed out the documentation. He's our Vice President of Member Services. And Stacy Wilson's our Director of Government Affairs. We appreciate the opportunity to meet with you tonight to talk a little bit about the benefits that the electric system brings to the Village of Chatham and the ownership and operations of that system and the value that it brings to the community that we serve, and the partnership that you have with the IMEA and the 31 other partners that you have partnered with for the long term. So we'd like to leave you with some key takeaways on slide 2. Number 1 is the village continues to serve your customers with competitive rates that serve your customers and provides long-term rate stability and service stability for many, many years, just like you've done. Because you've worked with your partners for many years, you now have a reliable power supply assets in place that are prepared for a changing economic system with regard to the wholesale energy market. Your customers enjoy reliable power supply and an operating staff that supplies superior service to our customers and a robust system availability. Because you own and operate your electric system, it creates positive economic impacts, such as creating local jobs, creating local revenues, and also government efficiencies. Your electric department has been the largest revenue contributor to the village for decades. In fact, over the last 5 years, thanks to the excellent reporting that your staff does, including Sherry, which I know she wins a number of awards. She does a tremendous job of reporting that information out, that After or after all expenses were paid, over the last 5 years, you've nearly netted $1.8 million to the benefit of the village on a nonprofit basis. So with that, with your nonprofit partners at IMEA and the 31 other partners that make up our agency, you will continue to serve your ratepayers for many, many years to come. We appreciate that. Some of the benefits that come from owning and operating your own system are the reliable and valuable responsive staff that you have. That staff is here 24 hours a day, 365. That staff, anytime there's a situation where the lights go out, everybody that's been in this village knows that one of their neighbors is out there immediately taking care of that situation, and probably the person that's leaving to be dispatched to that probably already knows what's wrong because they know the situation, they know the customers, and they know your system. And they know if it's not a major ice storm or a tornado or something like that, the power is going to be on relatively quickly. Your system enjoys high reliability. The other thing that customers and developers and other folks in this community know, that if they have a question about something that's going on in the electric system or the utility system, they probably know somebody that's in the utility department. They probably know somebody that works for the village. They know one of you. They know how to get a hold of you, and they know how to reach somebody on a cell phone or their office phone almost immediately, and you're not needing to wait for an 800 number. And there's some value to that, to you, to us and your customers. Your electric staff is part of the overall utility system and the village government that you own. Because you have the staff and the trucks and the digger derricks and all those other things, that group works together to respond to emergencies, to respond to the needs of the community. And they also work very closely together, I think, to see the village of Chatham pull off some pretty cool things, like whether it's a sweet corn festival or homecoming or whatever the case might be, in addition to if we have ice storms and snowstorms and the like. To us, local ownership means local control. And because you own and operate your own system, the local leaders, which is all of you, help set those policies and the rates and the service levels that your customers depend upon. From what we can tell, your customers appreciate the way you look at that on a personal basis and understand their personal situations. And sometimes, yes, it's challenging to go through those situations in this room to manage those situations. But I think your customers appreciate you looking them in the eye and understanding how that works. From what we can tell, your customers also very much value your electric system. They value the active and involved government that the village has, and they appreciate both the staff and the work that you do. And we're proud to work with you as we have for the last 36 years. That responsive ownership has brought stable rates and predictable rates. Your rates have been stable for many years, and we expect them to be stable for many more years to come. Your rates are less than the statewide average, and your rates are less than the national average. Over the last several years, the average cost of the power supply to the village of Chatham from the IMA has been about 1% per year, and we expect that to be fairly flat over the next several years as well. The electric wholesale energy market is continuing to evolve in this region, but because you've worked with your partners to secure long-term power supply resources that provide those stable resources, it provides a good long-term hedge for the village of Chatham and the 31 members we serve. Today's energy market, I've been in the energy market for 33 years. Today's energy market is the lowest it's been in a generation and probably 2 generations. There has been significant volatility in the past 50 years in the energy market, just like we saw in 2008 with gasoline being $5 a gallon, petroleum being $147 a barrel, and natural gas being $15 a decatherm. That seems like it's a million years ago, but those things have a way of, just when you think you understand what's going on in the energy market, something happens to change that. So we'll see what happens, but there are potentially changes over the long-term horizon in the energy market as well. Again, as I've said before, your rates are competitive with the local and the state and the regional suppliers. For example, your electric rates are very, very competitive with CWLP, depending on the size and the nature and the voltage and the usage of those customers. They're all going to be very, very competitive. Your rates are about 3.7% less than the statewide average, as was reported just in October from the Energy Information Administration. Your rates are about 1.5% less than the national average, and your senior citizen discount offers an additional lower rate for those of your customers that qualify. Again, stable and reliable and dependable long-term supply. If you take a look at slide 6, that's a map of our members. Chatham was one of our 31 partners that has been involved in the IMEA since 1984. You all joined in 1985. Chatham was one of the very first power supply members we began to serve, and the village has been very active and engaged in support of our agencies since 1985. Chatham has somewhere around 6,000 electric customers, but in the 32 cities we own, all the way from the northern part of the state to the tip of the south, we serve about 170,000 retail customers, of which 6,000 of them come from the village of Chatham. Because of your partnership with us and your municipalities, we were formed to help small utilities compete in the wholesale marketplace and the retail marketplace. And we're pretty proud of that relationship we've had and the work we've done together. What we do for you is we provide long-term strategic planning and daily operations, working with your staff to continue to do that in the retail level. We aggregate our members' power supply. We create diversified power supply portfolio that creates strength in numbers that the village of Chatham or any of our members alone wouldn't be able to join themselves. We're governed by a board of directors. We serve 32 cities. We have 32 board members. You have a representative on our board that has a direct voice in the power supply and the wholesale services that you provide yourselves, along again with those 32 members. We currently also have a seat on the IMEA executive board, and those seats are determined by their peers. They pick each of them pick 9 of them to be on that executive board to dig a little deeper into those details of what's important to their communities. Today, you have a seat on that executive board, and you have a direct voice in that because your peers have a lot of confidence and faith in the village of Chatham as well. So not only are you directly engaged in the day-to-day operations of your retail services, you're also involved in the decisions of the wholesale basis about the services that you want to provide to yourselves and the resources that you want to use to serve yourself. And again, we're glad to have Village of Chatham as one of our partners. Again, Chatham is an owner of the IMEA. You're partners with 31 cities, and you're partners with the staff that you have in Springfield. This is not just a power supply contract that you have, it's a long-term partnership. The village has a long-term binding and enforceable contract with your 31 partners that was signed in 2003. That contract that you have signed is materially the same contract that every one of our members have signed. They depend on you, and you depend on them. That contract currently expires at the end of September of 2035. In the last year, out of our $340 million of revenue from the IMEA, you purchased about $7 million of wholesale electric supply and services from us. Part of the terms of your partnership with that agreement is that there isn't allowed assignment to those agreements under reasonable terms. But no party, including the IMEA, cannot unilaterally terminate that agreement. Number 2, it must ensure that the tax-exempt status of the IMEA and all 31 members, that status is not jeopardized about issuing and continuing to issue tax-exempt debt. Not just IMEA's debt, but any of the debt that the Village of Chatham or the 31 other members would want to issue in the future, because that could jeopardize that debt. There are items with regard to the Internal Revenue Code, with regard to the private use restrictions, that forbid a tax-exempt entity to use that tax-exempt debt to sell to a for-profit company and arbitrage those benefits. That's what's called the IRS private use bond restrictions. And so that's something that's very upfront and very important to us, and it's important to you as well. And then last, there's a make-whole escrow deposit that would be required to ensure cost compliance between the village and the 31 other members that you're partners with to ensure full compliance in the terms of that contract. Again, the IMEA and the 31 communities that you're partnered with are your long-term partners. There's a number of benefits that the Village of Chatham has gotten and will continue to get from that partnership. Chatham has the support of not only that 24/7 operations staff in Springfield, but the support of all those other communities. If there's a mutual aid situation, if Shane or Pat or somebody gives me a call and says, we need your help, those people will be here. Just like you've been with them, they will be here with you. You have many allies in this business. IMEA is a nonprofit agency that has a proven record of success with this village for the last 36 years. You have professional management to manage the complex day-to-day operations of the utility business. We provide, as I said before, a 24/7, 365 operations center in Springfield. And again, as soon as the COVID clears, I'd be happy to have any of you come in, take a look at our operations center. But right now, we're being pretty protective about who goes in and out of those doors just to make sure we keep everybody there healthy. But in addition to that, we optimize your cost, your supply, and the services that you need to provide to your ratepayers. And last, we provide a number of important value-added services to our municipal members to help you all stay compliant with all the rules of the road that you're engaged in, such as safety training, regulatory assistance, up-to-date information of all the evolving energy issues, and a pretty robust energy efficiency program to help your customers manage those power supply decisions. And the Village of Chatham has been very involved in that for many, many years. So with that, as this crazy world continues to evolve and one never knows what might happen at the next corner, we'll still be here with you, working to take care of our neighbors, just like we're your neighbors, to take care of whatever you need, just like we've been doing for the last 36 years together, and you all have been doing for nearly 100 years. So with that, I look forward to continuing to working with all of you. I would answer any questions that any of you might have for us.
So, Mr. Giddens, I just want to thank you and apologize. The apology is I should have come in and talked to you guys a lot earlier when I first became a trustee. Your guys' presentation was very professional. I learned a ton of stuff that I did not know about the village and electricity, period. And I just thank you for coming. I'm the one that asked you to come tonight, and I appreciate you coming and updating us on this. It was kind of a second fold of due diligence, and for all of us to get some questions answered, and you answered everything that we asked professionally with not skewing anything, and it's very appreciated. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
I want to echo everything Trustee Gerger said. And please tell me if you don't want to go into any of this. On page 7, when you talked about the bonds, I wanted to see if you wanted to mention, I know you've done very well in how you've managed funds, and it's very important on a bond rating and all that. I didn't know if you wanted to discuss a little about that.
So I think a question we had was entering into that LOI, could it have had some bearing on because we're part of that 31
Right.
bond rating?
Well, look, what I will say in that regard is that, first of all, the IMEA is rated by all three of the bond rating agencies. We're rated as an A+ with two of them and an A+ with two of them. One of them is a positive outlook. The other one is a stable outlook. And one of them rates us as a flat A. Those are the highest credit ratings of any utility in the state of Illinois. And that speaks to the financial wherewithal and the understanding from the ratings markets of your willingness and ability to pay your bills on time in order to satisfy those bond debt obligations. We just went through all three of those ratings. So for me to say that by entering into a letter of intent to look at this thing, would it immediately have had an impact on our ratings? Probably not, because we just got done with that happening. However, we have a number of other arrangements. So for example, when we're out negotiating power supply needs, whether it's capacity or energy or whatever the case might be, our counterparties look at our creditworthiness because they look through us. They look to the villages and the cities that we serve and their ability to make those payments. And so in that case, when we're negotiating with a counterparty, if they say, shoot, IMEA is an A+ stable, these folks are good for their money. If they perceive that there's a risk out there, then my counterparties might say to me, well, I saw this thing over here that you guys might be looking at this. The other issue we have, which is a little deep into the weeds, The IMA holds a $50 million line of credit with a national bank. We get a very low-cost letter of credit in case we needed that money, and we rarely draw on that line. But that money is very low cost to us for that line of credit because those national banks, and there's a number of them, look at us, and we bid those out on a regular basis. And when we come back and take a look at that, and they say, you know, we know you're good for the money, we're going to give you a very attractive rate for a 3-year letter of credit. If we had something like that, that's one of the due diligence that those banks need to do is, can you explain to me what's happening there? And is there a risk that they may not be there to help pay that bill as part of that partnership? And the answer is possible. So is it, for any of you that have been through rating agency reviews, it's kind of like the 3 hardest job interviews you've ever had, all in 3 of them in 2 days. But at the same time, they understand how this works. But at the same, is it possible to happen? Could it have a financial impact on us? Absolutely. Is that rating, could that rating be changed today because of a letter of intent? That's not very likely. And most of that is because we just got done doing those ratings with those agencies. So I know that's a long answer to a fairly simple question, but it's a complex question.
Sure. Yep. Well, and please tell me if I'm being overly simplistic, but I know there's people in the community that have questions. And so for the average ratepayer of what this would mean, you know, after we had our discussion on this letter of intent recently. So, I mean, so it wouldn't necessarily affected someone's rate in the immediate term, but but some have said there was no negative consequences if we would have approved that LOI. But what I'm sensing is that there could have potentially been negative consequences just allowing a letter of intent to proceed forward.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, but again, I guess, Mr. Scherzel, the way that I would say that is, you all have signed a long-term commitment between 32 cities. And so, as you can imagine, when the Village of Chatham was considering signing a letter of intent to sell your distribution system to another party, you can imagine I got a number of phone calls from my board members and their constituents saying, what's going on? And so I said, you know, this is something they're taking a look at. We're continuing to work with them. We'll continue to be in communications with them, and we'll report any change to that. So you can imagine we'll be continuing to report to your partners what the status of this situation is, what we're going to continue to do to work with you to make sure that the value of the local control, the local ownership, the local decision-making, both at the retail level and having an active voice in the long-term wholesale aspect of this business, they're going to continue to ask those questions. And so there are negative consequences for that because, again, just like, for example, the city of Naperville is my largest member. They're 34% of that load. Just like if Naperville were to say, we're thinking about exiting this partnership, you would want me to be coming back to you and saying, I think this is important for me to communicate with you. And again, by the way, Naperville is not talking about exiting that partnership, that would be something very important. And whether that's Bushnell or Rantoul or Breeze or Metropolis or Winnetka or St. Charles or Rock Falls, fill in the blanks. They have concerns about that, wanting to make sure that the 31 partners that they have had that are going to continue to honor that partnership, just like you've honored that partnership.
And so we have a contract for another 15 years, so 2035. And so if I'm looking at this, you know, last year estimated we contributed about $7 million. So in essence of with that escrow deposit, if people could do their own math, we would have to make up for it. And I know you can't give a hard fast number, this could change, but you know, do the multiplication of $7 million a year for 15 years is what would have to be put into escrow if we were to exit this contract.
And that's fair characterization of the outcomes of that. But again, that assumes no escalation. That assumes the value of the contract as it's set today for the next 15 years. And so that is the pledge that all 32 made to each other to make sure that if you met all those criteria, and as I mentioned before, there are 4 criteria in that contract that would allow an assignment of that. And there's at least 2 of those that couldn't be met anyway. And so before you get to that fourth one, we couldn't even meet those criterion with the two first ones. The no termination only assignment, and it must be with a tax. It must have the ability to use tax exempt debt to provide that service. And so again, we're forbidden, just like anybody is forbidden, to issue tax exempt debt to the benefit of a profit seeking company. It's just that simple. So yeah, Mr. Scherzer, you're exactly correct. That's the deposit that was contemplated in that agreement, and that agreement was put together in the early 1990s. So that's exactly correct.
Thank you, Mr. Gaten.
Thank you, sir.
Other
Kevin?
questions?
Thank you, sir.
All right, appreciate it. Well, look, again, if there's anything, Shane's got my number, Pat's got my number. If there's anything we can do, our staff is available. And as soon as we all get shots in the arm and we don't have to wear masks everywhere we go, we would love to have the opportunity to bring in our control center, explain how it all works, explain what we do for you there every day, and we'll go through it on that basis. So with that, if there's anything, just let us know.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we're past 6 p.m. Take a motion to adjourn the board meeting. Trustee Charles made a motion. Second by Trustee Detmers. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting stands adjourned. Trustee Gerger, your show.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Chario. Trustee Gerger.
Here.
Trustee Detmers.
Here.
Trustee Churchill.
Here.
Any public comments on agenda topics?
None.
Okay. Can I have a motion to bring the consent agenda forward?
Make that motion.
Trustee Churchill,
Second.
trustee Charles. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, ayes have it. New business, IMEA discussion just happened. So thank you to the group. Let's move to the next one. General obligation bond refinancing.
Mr. Southworth is here to discuss a potential opportunity regarding the general obligation bond that we have outstanding that paid for the Park Street project.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mike Southworth. I'm a lawyer with the law firm of Hart Southworth and Witzman in Springfield. And Mayor contacted me and asked about taking advantage of some historically low interest rates, whether there were opportunities for the village to benefit. And in particular with bonds that were issued in 2017, $500,000 of bonds were issued, payable over 20 years. And they were purchased by Bank of Springfield. And I contacted Bank of Springfield on the village's behalf to inquire the interest rates on those bonds were 2.99%. And so I asked the bank, would they consider permitting the refunding of those? And the answer was yes, they would. So I prepared a simple spreadsheet that just identifies some information on the 17 bonds, and then also some potential new bonds at a lower interest rate. So with a refunding, the 17 bonds are payable from a property tax levy of about $33,000 per year for the next, and they mature in 2036, so roughly 16 more years. And they could be refunded and produce about $1,000 or $2,000 of savings each year, which is not an astronomical amount. And probably the impact on a property taxpayer in Chatham is 25 cents or so for a $100,000 house is just not a big number. But the more interesting question is whether Bank of Springfield and the village would be interested in not only refunding those old bonds, but issuing some additional bonds within the authority of the village, and at these low interest rates. And the answer from Bank of Springfield again was they would consider it. They don't like going out 20 years. Banks don't like going out that long, but they said they would do it. And that's the second line. The 2021 possible issuance of bonds if the village is interested, and at a 1.4% interest rate, a maturity date in 20 years, and with an annual tax levy of $46,000, that would produce about roughly $800,000 of principal for the village's use. About $460,000 would be used. These are rough numbers. Roughly $460,000 would be used to pay off the old bonds, and then the balance would be available for new projects for the village if that's of interest to the village. The $46,000 is again not a big number at all. The village has the ability to issue a small amount of bonds without referendum, payable from a property tax levy, and it's limited this year to an annual debt service of $46,000, and that's an increase over the $33,000 that results in about, again, on a $200,000 house, roughly $2.50 to $3 per year. So that's why I say the more interesting question is not whether you can save a few dollars on the refunding. You can, but you can also roll that savings forward and if you want to take advantage of these low interest rates, being able to borrow almost $800,000 and have $340,000 for projects.
So typically this bond, and go back to when we did this in 17, those fundings are committed to infrastructure project. This is the funding that went to all the work that got done on Park Street between Plummer and Walnut. So essentially we have this window that comes up about every 20 years to, we fully paid off that bond and refund it. What Mike has been very helpful with is analyzing the current scenario that we're in, and that's where he references the, extremely low interest rates that are available right now. And do we want to take advantage of retiring that old bond set and reissuing a new one to take it, to utilize those interest amounts to create funding that allows for additional infrastructure work in this coming fiscal year to the tune of about $300,000. So we did this 4 years ago for $500,000, and for it to come up this quick that we have an opportunity to be able to do another $300,000 and lock up 1.4% for 20 years. That's why this question on do we proceed to do this is in front of you right now.
So we would be increasing the length of this by a little bit.
It pushes it back to the original 20 years.
But we're taking advantage of a rate that's half of what we had and getting additional funding to fix another big street or another couple of smaller projects or whatever, infrastructure stuff that Jim's group's identified. But it has to be used towards that.
That's where Mike, is that in the law that the pre-PTEL levy authority has to be for infrastructure?
No, that is not. You can borrow for it under any general purpose that you wish.
Okay, so our history has been that's what you use it for, and again would be the recommendation that would come. That's what you use it for. These are the projects that are harder for us to do. For perspective, we're anticipating about $400,000 in MFT money this year. So if you put another 325 on it, you've almost doubled what you would get in a typical year to be able to take a big swipe at the long list that Jim has. And Jim was supposed to be here tonight to stand behind Mike and nod that that's a significant amount of funding to be made available for infrastructure. He's out of town somewhere. So
Just need a bobblehead then, or?
if we could get a Jim Michaels bobblehead, I'm down for that. Shane's doing it right. He's got the bobblehead going, but
While we're on bonds too, in the paper, it was said that, and we talked about this earlier today, that one of the bonds that we had reissued, or SSWC reissued, it looked like it was a year longer. It wasn't.
those were the same links that
They
you.
were the same term.
It's my understanding as well that it is the same maturity. Mhm.
And have they entered those bonds yet? If those bonds finalized,
Yes, yeah.
is there any way we can get copies of them?
Yes, I think probably they've been provided, but it's easy to do. Yeah,
Okay.
I will send them to Pat. If I haven't before, I'll send them again. If I have before, I'll send them again, and if
Thank
not,
you.
he'll have them.
I personally think this is.
You're gonna steer back on.
Yeah, I'm back in. We were talking bonds. I personally think this is a good idea. I'd like to hear everybody else's thoughts.
I concur.
Yeah, I too like the idea of having the interest rate. Again, nobody likes to raise taxes, but I think $2 to $3 on a $200,000 house in exchange for $337,000 for a project, I think it makes sense.
Kristen?
So if we,
So then
Greg, if we could get we need a resolution?
No.
Ordinance?
Mike needs direction.
Just give me,
A consensus from the board. The process from here then would be to prepare documents. One and a few steps. One would be probably at your next board meeting to have what is called the Bond Issue Notification Act hearing. So a notice goes in the paper that the village is contemplating issuing some bonds. Would anybody like to come and comment or submit comments? And so then there's that hearing that is held, and then 8 days later or longer, a bond ordinance can be adopted, and that's would be the official act of the village authorizing the bonds, and all the details, all the very specific details of the bonds would then be available, and they will approximate this.
so we need a special meeting then?
No, you don't.
No.
8 days is the minimum.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Not the max.
typically, it's done over two meetings. So
Okay.
next meeting's the bond hearing, and the meeting after that is the bond.
Right.
Ordinance adopted, and then 4, 5, 6 days later, the closing occurs, and you have your money.
Go to market. Okay.
How many days out do we need to notice the public hearing?
No less than 7, no more than 30. And
I need what needs to go in the paper then first thing tomorrow morning, okay?
okay, I'll prepare it tonight if that's.
Yeah, this
Direction to
is
go.
clear because we're kind of going in a circle where the board has to quasi commit to going down it, and then BOS will take their final steps to get their board
That
authorization.
way we can get it in the paper Thursday for,
Good enough?
We need to specify the maximum amount of the bonds to be issued, and we need to describe generally a purpose. And so ordinarily, I would recommend, talking about a couple of dollars extra. So rather than being precise to 797,000, I might say 810,000 or something like that, and then fall underneath it. Unless you tell me differently, I just don't want to surprise anyone.
Could you explain the 810 to me again?
Yeah, so the hearing has to describe the maximum amount of bonds to be issued and the purpose. And so this $797,000 number is an approximation. And I think it's a conservative approximation. So for that same $46,000 or $46,005, you will be able to borrow more, I believe. But I guess from your perspective, from the village's perspective, the annual levy isn't going to change much, but the amount that you can actually borrow could be $10,000 or $15,000 greater.
Some of that is based on timing of when you
Yeah,
actually
timing.
close.
That's
because
right.
So that levy, the 46, that's flat. That's what you're not
That's
changing.
fixed.
Right.
Yeah.
anything over that, we would just make it up out of our budget then to pay. it.
Correct.
Yeah, so essentially you say, and this was a similar process that what you remember from the water plant, where, you know, you said the maximum was like 36 or 34,
Yes.
36, and then by the time you're done, you got it
Yes.
down to exactly what the,
That's right. And let me say again, the bond ordinance that comes back to you will be very specific. If you determine between now and then, you only want 797,000, that will be the number. But if you see that you can have 805,000 and determine you'd like to have the 805, that's what the ordinance will say. But this is not committing you to a larger number. It's just giving you the option in 2 weeks to decide.
An up to maximum.
Yes,
So if we did 797, but we could have borrowed 815, if we do 797, then that 46,000 would drop.
correct.
Okay.
that makes sense.
Yep.
So I think the direction is maximize
As much as
levy
we
allowance
can.
with these,
At 1.4%.
with these rates,
Yeah.
Yep.
correct?
Okay, fair enough.
You do.
And then the purpose would be the infrastructure, roads,
Yes.
in general, very general, okay.
Yes.
Roads, yeah, we usually, our practice has, and the practice I would recommend continuing to do it, is utilize this bond for roadway, curb gutter, sidewalk, drainage, you know,
Before,
ancillary.
before this last one, it was used to install sanitary sewer. We had a big stretch of sanitary sewer that had to be replaced, so that's what the bond money went for that.
Yeah. I was,
I think that's what most of the constituents, I mean, you always hear infrastructure, roads, sidewalks, so that'd be the
It's
interest.
not like we don't have enough to fix.
Mike, does that give you enough?
Okay, that's plenty. Thank you all very much.
Appreciate your time and your help.
Thank you. CMT engineering updates.
Jim sent me a text. Hold on a second here.
That's right out.
You just jumped up there and did that, like.
He's doing well.
I don't want to have to defend it.
He sent it in an email. Well, anyway, the thing that he wanted to talk about a little bit tonight was our MFT work for next year. He's going to start putting the plan together now so we can get it let as early as possible. And with the money that we didn't use from this year and the money that we have coming in this next year, and then money from this, the plan is to do a big stretch of Oak Brook. But I think we'll have enough funds to be able to not only finish off the bad part of Oak Brook, but be able to work on Hurstbourne and also Spruce Street, where those two are major people movers out of subdivisions. And those are the streets that we need to get fixed first before we start going down the side streets and stuff. It's worked on Ptarmigan, and we've made good progress on Oak Brook, but we still got a decent stretch to be able to take care of. What we were going to have in MFT was going to take care of that this year. With this extra money, we'll be able to do even more work. And that's not including what we have that we usually set aside for our own crews then to work on. So it should be, if we have a good year weather-wise, we should be able to get a lot of work done.
More than two people next to each other.
Huh?
Putting people next to
Well,
each other
that-
also helps being.
That was a hard part too this year because of COVID and people were home for a month and a half.
Man, I remember the last meeting, Jim had mentioned the submissions. You know, I knew there was a bottleneck or a hiccup in terms of those being approved at IDOT.
The state's still working from home.
So will a lot of our projects be able to be submitted as early as possible so that they're able to get out there and work on them as soon as possible?
That's what he's hoping.
With respect to the repairs that have been done so far, are we updating and maintaining the road grading scales that we've had? I think it's important that we have some framework to make these decisions on. Like Spruce is cool today, but you know, Wilmington is better tomorrow. Like I just feel like there should be a structure to the decisions as to where the monies are put. And we should stick by that structure, just as we should stick by the comprehensive plan, just as we stick by the Parks comprehensive plan, and come up with a plan of attack. Obviously, annually, we adjust that to say, hey, look, something really bad happened over here that we weren't anticipating. But again, I just feel that that should be driving all of our decisions, and we should be maintaining it.
I'll check with Jim to make sure that they're updating that in the GIS. We keep track of it all. Eric goes out and GPSs all of the patches that are done around town, so.
Thank you.
All right. Is that all of engineering then?
Yeah.
Appropriation fund transfer discussion.
Sherry sent you some information on that, and we have some information to put up on the board. This will be an ordinance next month. And we do this every year, 2 times usually. Once about a little bit past midway in January, and then the other time is we try to finalize everything and close it up at the end of the year. If you look at the line items, she usually tries to keep the stuff that she's moving around in the same fund. So say for instance, up at the top, you're going to see that IT admin, we're adding $2,000 to that, but we're taking $2,000 out of professional services. So
When did she send this?
today,
I didn't get
did you
that.
get it? Anybody else get it? I thought you sent it to everybody. Well, it's on board docs.
Yep, it's on board doc.
You don't have to act on anything tonight, but like she says in the note that's along with it,
Bless you.
turn around and take a look at it. If you have any questions, feel free to give me or her a call, okay?
Okay.
But she's done a really good job of putting in there what was in the budget, what we need changed, and the explanation off to the side. So
And there will be ordinance next, in 2 weeks. Just a-
that's the plan, to have an ordinance to pass that in 2 weeks.
Does that make sense to you guys? Do you remember this process from the last year?
Yes.
They're usually not big numbers, you know, a couple thousand here, a couple thousand there.
Right, staying whole and staying within funds.
So then vehicle and equipment maintenance, I know we used to have a mechanic, we don't have a mechanic anymore, we haven't filled that, we're not filling it, or?
And we took his salary that we had in the budget and used that to pay for some of the higher costs.
Okay,
We figured we would have some higher costs going outside. We weren't exactly sure how much. So we tried to budget roughly around where we were at last year. It looks like we're going to go over a little bit. But overall, we haven't used all of his salary and benefits and everything else. So we're still less than what we had essentially budgeted, right?
What's your expectation plan for next year?
To replace the mechanic.
That or, yeah, the plan for.
I think we'll look at the numbers and then turn around and take a look at it. But, you know, we may still just go outside for mechanic services.
where are we going for mechanic services? Do you-
It varies from department to department. Some guys have equipment that needs a specialty for hydraulics. Someone else, it may be just straight old engine repair. We use some of the businesses here in town, some of them in Springfield.
Yeah, we see them on the warrants quite a bit, you know, and I appreciate that they're local when they are.
Yep. Because our snow removal, I mean, it's getting to that time of year. How is that fleet looking or doing?
We just had 2 of our big trucks, had major repairs to those this year. I would assume they're still in fairly good shape. The other 2 are in pretty good shape. On the first, they went out and they used them to salt. They plowed a little bit, but not a whole lot. We didn't call in all the crews. We just called in the street department. 2 go down. They're just old trucks. You know, we're trying to get that one from the township. You know, they said they would sell us one. that one, as soon as it comes into our fleet, would be our second newest truck. So,
Where do we take those to get fixed? You know?
do you know the names of the companies?
Last one's on site, they'll tell you either Jacksonville or have them on site to do it, so.
So if we have one go down for Jacksonville and we have the snow back-to-back days, could there be issues?
Yeah.
There's no issues that we haven't faced before. Even with a mechanic on staff, one of the challenges you got is there's such a variety of equipment and there's
Right,
sophistication to some of these things now.
right.
Well, to that
Perhaps in a
point,
large fleet, you can't cover everything.
well, to that point, I know we just bought a new truck for the water department. Could that be utilized for snow removal?
It's going to have a plow on it and it will be used.
Okay, so will that help? Because I know last year, there was some citizen complaints on, because 2 trucks went down, or however many went down last year. So in terms of just what's the plan, so we're, our staff's gonna have all the vehicles they need, because I know it's a quick, getting out there.
Well, it'll be a brand new 1-ton and it'll have a plow on it. And then the 250 pickup truck that was purchased for the electric department is also going to have a plow on it. So that'll be able to take care of smaller areas.
So are those outside the 5 that we have now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I think just generally too, I don't know a ton, but the pickup trucks can get torn up pretty easily when you start plowing snow. So I think you probably should at least consider, another big truck or again, a schedule of replacements. I think that's generally how we should operate. But yeah, I mean, I'd hate to put a new plow on a brand new truck and turn it into a 3-year truck, when you just, not misuse it necessarily, but they're hard. Yeah.
We're okay with buying a brand new big truck.
No, I just think really that there should always be forward thinking and there should be planning and there should be forward thinking and planning with all the decisions we make. And,
Yeah, we've been doing that.
You're talking just in terms of balancing, because we are buying new vehicles, but just identifying the need of where it is in the schedule.
right. Yep, exactly. And, again, we could make ends meet by plowing with the pickup truck and then you ruin a $50,000 pickup truck, Anyway, we don't have to debate this, but.
All right, so we'll look for an ordinance on that. I thought we did see this earlier. We had this.
Jerry talked about it at the last meeting.
Yeah.
This is the actual numbers.
So then
We'll do what's coming.
Okay.
She'll review it, her Kayla will review it still over the course of the next 2 weeks to finalize as things come in before they put the final one in front of you in 2 weeks.
All right, village manager update?
I was going to have Shane talk a little bit about the tree trimming contract that he's going to have coming up. And then also Dustin talk a little bit about a contract with Emmy Simpson to go back through the town again to look for leaks. So you want to tell them where?
That second contract on that was the one that sealed it, you guys approved coming 2 months ago, or was it June, I believe it was, June or July. They just finished up the one there on Bonnieburg and part of Glenwood. They'll finish up that last half of it, starting in February the 8th. And they'll be done before April. Is their schedule right now?
Clearing the trees?
For the, yes, for Chattanooga subdivision.
Okay. Again, we've already talked about this and we've already seen the numbers and already approved, right? We're just, yep. I appreciate the clarification because we'll see it on the warrants and we'll wonder, so thank you for laying that out there.
I think that's the subdivision we have the most outages in. Yeah. Dustin?
Stand up so you can hear me. This year we budgeted for a water distribution water leak survey. We budgeted $35,000 for that. In 2015 was the last time we did it. It found just a couple of leaks they found paid for the actual leak survey. It was very important that we found these leaks. This year we decided to go out again, and we originally quoted at $39,000. And over the last 6 months, I've topped it down to $30,125, which I think is a good number. It's just a little bit of a bump from 5 years ago. Some of the things they do, just so you guys know what's going on, they're going to come out with a 2-man crew at minimum, and they're going to listen to hydrants, water meter pits, and valve boxes. And what they're listening for is a screaming noise that would indicate a leak. Now, the leaks that we're looking for are only on our side, our property, not the resident's side. that is private property. So when they go through town, they're gonna find a leak and they're gonna call me and I'm gonna dispatch our crews immediately out there. They dig it up, they fix the leak, and it saves us money day after day. So I just wanted to see if you guys could approve us to do that leak survey. I think it's a great thing for the village chest and saves us money in the long run.
So this would be something above what's in the current budget?
Yes.
No,
It what?
no.
Below,
It's below what? In the budget, there's 35K for this
And this would be
project.
30.
And this is only 30 of that,
Right.
so we'll have a
but
little.
there are, if they go over 85 miles, is what we were quoted on, there is charges of $235 per mile for iron pipe and $450 for plastic. I can keep us under the 35. I think we'll stay at the 30, but I'm just saying, if they get to a point and say, hey, you're more than 85 miles pipe, then it would be an additional charge.
They start on the mains and then work smaller. Is that how they, on the biggest mains?
No, they start at one side of town and usually just work their way through, and it just depends, so.
When's the last time we did this?
In
5 years ago.
2015 and the beginning of 2016, so it's almost been exactly 5 years, so it's perfect time to do it.
And Dustin, in your expertise, do you feel like maybe this is something we too should invest in the future to get the listening devices that they have so that your team could do? I don't mean to put you on the spot, I'm sure they're expensive, but maybe just something about, you know, bringing this in-house and potentially lowering the cost to the citizens.
I think that's
in
a
that way.
good idea, but with the limited staff we have, walking 85 miles of pipe and having the training that you need to do this, these guys are experts and do it all over the country. So
Right.
would my guys be as good as them? I don't think so. These guys do it every day. This is what they do.
Sure.
And you're walking 85 miles of pipe, that's a lot of work. I mean, my guys are gonna be out for months just doing that one job. So
Yeah, there's some joggers in town. We could just maybe, like, I don't know. I'm just thinking of ways, but no.
Really thinks outside the box. How long does it take them, the timeline?
I think last time, Shane, you were in charge then, was it 6 to 8 weeks, I think they were kind of here? Yeah, 8 weeks. Yeah, so.
Do you remember the anticipated? Because it was a big number with what we caught. Putting you on the spot now.
The first 2 leaks that they found paid for the whole.
Yeah, there was a leak. There was a leak in Glenwood Lake Estates that they dug it up. I went out there and looked, and they had pinched the copper, and it had ate out a great big hole underneath of the grass. But luckily, it was right next to a mailbox, but it was a big enough hole that if you were mowing your yard, you could the guy could have went all the way down into the hole. It was deep.
The large leak that they saved a lot of money on.
Yeah.
Right there on the front yard.
Yeah.
I knew it was substantial, and everyone was kind of awestruck at when we thought that we were.
It was hundreds of gallons of that we would still not know about it today if they didn't do that.
Yeah, because no indication, no water up on top of the ground or anything. That's what's the advantage of this thing is you won't see it. You don't know it's there. It's spraying down or spraying off into a gap in the ground.
So is it fair to say an added bonus beyond just the savings of stopping a leak is that you're also preventing damage that could potentially.
Sure could eat out underneath of a road.
Well, and the water, right, is contaminated. Theoretically, if the pipe is leaking, couldn't contaminants enter the water stream? You know, or,
Pressure.
Yeah.
So that's as long as you have 20 PSI pressure on the main, that's why there's no boil work when we fix water mains. We fix them hot, so they're constantly pushing pressure out. Nothing can come into the main.
okay,
Now, from a soil erosion and
yeah.
other damage that could be.
The guy's garden was doing really well that year.
The watermelons just.
Not anymore.
So
The
they
community garden could have.
we need an ordinance to approve that contract.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Very cool.
What I can sign for.
Thank you, Dustin.
Anything else on village manager update?
That's it.
All right. Public Property and Recreation Committee discussion.
I do have one more thing.
Oh, man.
Never mind,
I
Dewey.
just took a deep
You have
breath.
to wait.
Stand down, Dave.
The sickage thing.
Yes.
That's on the utility,
The sickage?
I think.
I think it's on,
Yeah, it is.
on the agenda. It's under the manager.
It's under.
Paul had sent me an email today and asked about snow removal and if we had gotten any complaints. And I don't think we got any complaints on that. The snow wasn't there for more than 2 or 3 hours. Yeah, if we would have got any complaints, maybe somebody complained that we tore up their sod a little bit or something like that, maybe. Our vehicles, Shane said we had, Two of them broke down the other day, but I imagine they're fixed by now. What do we do if the vehicle goes down? We fix it, and we'll have essentially 2 new trucks in the fleet over what we had last year. So we're hoping that relieves some of it. At some time, we'll probably end up with more vehicles than we have people to drive them, to tell you the truth. But they're not the great big ones.
Right.
We've got 4 of those.
Okay. Public Property and Recreation Committee discussion, Dewey?
Quickly, let me say that there's an anticipated opening in the Public Properties Commission. So if you're interested in that, please send your resume and a letter of interest to Mr. McCarthy, and it'll be put in consideration for that appointment by the mayor. We'll probably look to put something in the paper as well to make sure that it's well known that committee is looking for another member.
Who's stepping down?
I believe Shauna Workman is stepping down. She absolutely loves the group, but just family commitments are preventing her from attending as much as she'd like. So that's anticipated. And again, if you're interested, please share those items with Mr. McCarthy. My largest item is, first, thank you to all the volunteers for the Light Up the Park. I think we saw an amazing year this year, raised a lot of funds for the village parks, and the Friends of the Park do a lot for our village, and there were hundreds of hours and many, many volunteers that made that happen, so I wanted to formally thank them for that. Lastly, I wanted to bring forth what I understand is a potential grant opportunity for the village of Chatham. It was explained to me by Mayor Kimsey and Pat McCarthy, and as well as Dustin Patterson, that the village is in pretty final runnings for a potential grant from the state of Illinois, totaling roughly $350,000. Those grant monies could be used towards general infrastructure improvements, and it's the village administration's intent to use them in our public places, public parks and things. So they approached me, seeing as I'm the trustee that sits on the Public Properties Commission, to reach out to the Public Properties Commission and gauge their interest as to what projects or need they see in the village of Chatham that we could potentially use these funds for. In addition to the Public Properties Commission, I also met with the Chatham Friends of the Park, the board of that organization, to see what they thought and what they needed, as well as speaking with Mr. Morgan as well from the American Legion and VFW's perspective as to what they might see in Veterans Memorial Square. That being said, with Dustin's great help, we put together a list of potential projects and a very rough estimate as to what those projects may cost. The hope is that these estimates are high rather than being low. So we took this very long list of projects that either Dustin's staff has found, citizens have questioned or concerns with, or just things, again, that those groups have mentioned are needed. Dustin and I then sat down and assigned sort of a pseudo priority to each item, just based on public safety, based on the number of people that might interact with this project. So what's the best use for the money? So before you and I did try to email this to you guys last night as well. Some of you likely haven't had the chance to read through it, but I encourage you to do so. This list is sorted based on the way that Ms. Dahlkamp is presenting it. It's sorted by the priority, which is in the 5th column there, and then by cost as the second sort. So again, I don't mean to be long-winded here, but this is incredibly important to me, and it's the reason that Public Properties Commission exists. So I'm before you presenting this on their behalf. The number one priority listed there in blue is, again, we can talk about these in great detail, and I would love to, because this is my thing. But you guys can just tell me to shut up too whenever you'd like, because you've had enough. But There actually
As
is
you would
a
listen.
drawing. Amy, is by chance on board docs, is there a drawing that talks about sidewalks?
Yep, CP sidewalk.
Yes, please. So this is a very rough sketch, but again, I met with Mr. Patterson as well as Mr. Hanson within the village, and we took a look at the Veterans Memorial Square. And if you've been there, you might appreciate that there are not any sidewalks to the east or west, but the handicapped parking is along the west there. So if you were handicapped or in need of, some better walkways, you have to kind of route around a long way, and it's just not conducive for that. So in an attempt to mirror the north and south sidewalks that you'll see, which are about 6 feet wide, we drew in potential sidewalks to the east and west. And we did that mostly so that you can get an idea as to what something like this may cost. The actual route, if we were to A, get the grant, and B, choose this project, the actual route may be a little bit differently. For instance, it might follow that mulch path further north towards that gazebo, because there's really not a good way to access that gazebo without getting mulch on your new shoes. So this is just one item. There are many such items on this list here. This one, we have a lot of formal events at the square, and we should make it look good. And while again, I always try to reference the Parks comprehensive plan. There was a drawing for Veterans Memorial Square that had a big stage, and it moved the memorial out of the way, and those sort of things. So there's obviously numerous things that we can do, but this is fairly cheap, with respect to other things in the drawing, and B, it's needed, right? So that's why it's a high priority for the public properties as well as the American Legion and that team. So I'm going to rip through the next section a little bit faster, and towards the end here, I'll be going at lightning speed. The new play set for the playground, this was focused on Community Park. That's without a doubt that's the most traveled park in the land, and that playground sees a lot of activity because there's brothers and sisters that are watching their siblings play soccer and football and pickleball. A lot of people watching me play pickleball. Anyway, there's a potential grant opportunity that Dustin had found where, if we were to invest money, this company that produces the playground equipment could match it. So the thought is to put down $50,000 of the grant towards a new play set, and then have the company match $50K, and you buy a $100,000 piece of equipment. I won't go into the details, but it would be replacing some of the broken equipment at Community Park today. The second biggest need and priority 2 is Westside Park. There are, if you recall, the park was sort of a bowl shape, and a lot of the water would retain in the middle of the park, and it really would hinder the ability to use the baseball diamonds and the other open space there in that area. So last year, our team worked with the township, I believe, to level that land to a more gentle, gradual slope so that the water would trickle into the creek more efficiently, which opened up that land to be best used for baseball, which was there before. So item number 2 is replace the 4 tiny fields with a larger and a smaller field to get those kids back to playing. There is a drawing for this one as well, Amy, thank you. So again, you got to tilt your head a little bit because the east is at the top and the north is on the left there. But if you were to scroll down just a little bit, you'll see the pink is the larger softball type diamond, and the purple is a smaller T-ball sized diamond. And again, from the folks at CBSI and other groups that facilitate this, there's a desperate need for baseball fields in Chatham. So with removing 4 from their equation, we think we should replace 2. And along that, there's another item on the list here of the pathway. And if you see, Amy, there's a small white line and then a longer pink line that kind of meanders around the baseball diamonds. That would be a pathway, A, which is ADA accessible, and B, just for folks to walk along as the kids are playing ball. So you could get from the parking lot to any of the 3 items there on that pathway. One last item, if I could, Amy, if you could just quickly go to Google and just Google Chatham, Illinois, and I want to look at a map of the community park, please. Yeah, just the Chatham, Illinois, and then the map should come up and we can zoom in. Thank you. Yeah, if you go, actually maps is the 4th option there. Along the tab where you chose images, there's maps right above it.
Straight up. Straight up.
Yep, right there. Yeah, thank you. So this will show us Chatham, obviously, and towards the bottom there, we'll try to zoom in, and then we'll switch to the satellite view, which is.
You want me to zoom in here?
Yeah, I'm looking for a community park, hopefully towards the bottom there, and hopefully we can. Where's the dang satellite option? Anyway,
You want to go over there and drive?
I don't want to touch her computer because of COVID. But no, she's not doing anything wrong. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, the park is down a little bit, but
There's elementary school.
yep. Yeah, typically there's a little button to change the viewing of it. Yeah. Aerial, please. Aerial, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you could zoom in just a little bit closer in that park on the bottom right there. So there's a couple items at Community Park, and we can all just talk about them quickly. But if you move over a little bit to the Dewey Detmers pickleball courts, talk about the next item. It should be, sorry, move to the right a little bit.
To the right.
The other right.
The other right.
Oh, sorry, it's my right.
Make a L with your hands.
Yeah, there are the courts there on the right.
Yeah.
So if you've played pickleball much or tennis, you'll see that when you leave the parking lot from the south there and you walk towards the pickleball courts, you walk through kind of dirt and leaf debris, and the goal here is to put in some sidewalks on the east and west. So that's that item there. Again, I could talk to you all day about all of these items, and I would love to do so, but in the essence of time, I guess I would ask that you, trustees, if you were to read this list of items and check it out and see if the priorities suit your needs. My guidance to the village was, if you were to approve, obviously, would be to try to get as much grant money as possible and then use it on these items in this order until the money is exhausted. And then next year, as we formulate our next budget, get the rest of them. This, in my perspective, this is us doing right by the parks in Chatham. I think sometimes it's easy to push things aside, and and it's not to say that we don't need another electric truck or whatever, but we have to commit to our parks just the same as we do to other departments, and so this grant helps us catch up to where we should be, and I would ask that the trustees keep that forward momentum as we look to making new budgets. Sorry, I'm just saying, everybody, I'm just teasing. I'm just using that as an example. But a couple items I feel the need to point out. Again, I talk about parks as much as possible. I did appreciate Mr. Joe's letter to the village saying, "Hey, I want some skate park opportunities." And just before you close that, no, that's okay. That's all right. Not a big deal. But the concrete area that he was referencing, I think used to be an old pitching machine or something thereabouts, and it's got some dips and things. And I haven't talked to Dustin about it, but I would imagine that we could install some rails, and a big skate on your own behalf.
Like where the old concession stand is.
Yeah, exactly. And again, if it's not being used today, I just see it as a sort of a cheap alternative to give some kids some outlets, and that's definitely needed in COVID. So unfortunately, that particular item didn't make the list, but I would work to put that on here. In addition to that, a couple newer items. Met with the Chatham Soccer Association, and they've always wanted to have lights on the soccer field. One of the members that runs that organization did admit, saying, "Hey, some of these other items on the list are more of a priority, but it's still something that the village should consider. So again, soccer lights at Community Park. Two more items. The Veterans Memorial Square. I think, you know, in the daytime, we all appreciate its beauty and its importance, but in the nighttime, it's kind of hard to see. So we need to look to invest some lights on the memorial itself and some lights on the square as well. And I would ask that we work with the Legion and the VFW and any other interested groups to make sure that that was done per their liking. And lastly, came to my attention that while there's a larger play set at Community Park, you know, the one that we all know of nearest the concession stand, there's also a smaller area of playground equipment near the baseball diamonds that maybe has been removed, or it's really small or lacking or broken, and maybe we should look to add something there as well. So aside from all those things I mentioned, the very bottom of the list, there's a couple items that, again, we think we definitely need to commit our staff into helping us repair. Some of them are larger items, you know, the clay tile in Community Park. We have to talk about that. We have to talk about the bike path. You know, we wish not to use the grant money towards the bike path, but I think it could be a very costly item, and you know, we absolutely need to do it for safety concerns. And then I jokingly called it the channel, but there's a little bridge in Community Park that is on what's the name of it this year? Chatham Community. Chatham Volunteer. That on that roadway, there's a bridge that the sides are kind of eroding with water. So I think we really need to, and I'm no engineer, but we really need to fortify that bridge so that, you know, more doesn't happen. That's on the list. And last item is just that we talk about the dog park a lot, or a dog park a lot. We talk about that. You know, speaking with the Friends of the Park, I think that it's in our best interest for the Village of Chatham to utilize and work with groups that want to do projects and will help fund them. So the goal would be, if the Chatham Friends of the Park believe a dog park is warranted, or they wish to have one in Chatham, that they work to fund that and not use these grant monies towards that. So that's the thought there. Any questions? I could rant all day about this.
Can I summarize doing it in less than 5 minutes?
Oh, let's see this.
What we need, because it's a state grant, it's going to be administered through DCEO. There's an entire process that we have to go through that sets out the budgeting, and then there's bid requirements for every item that comes on there. So for Dustin to be able to tackle that bid list, what he needs, you know, a nod from the board is to say, this prioritization makes sense. We understand where you want to go. Seize the full amount of the
Do it.
350. Obviously, that's the gimme. We've got that line. Seize that, but start putting together the bid specs and the grant requirements, and get these things submitted to DCOs as quickly as possible. So essentially, the ask on this one is, are you comfortable with the priorities that are laid out in there? And then what Dustin and the staff will end up doing as they get specific bid amounts for each thing is to try to maneuver through this. If we're in the middle of section 3, you know, and we can get these 4 things done in exchange for not doing this one that's in that same category, let them come back and say, here's where all urban specs come in and what we need to done.
I'm good at I appreciate the work the committee did on this list and getting it to us. I looked through it. I think it's spot on. It's exactly what that committee was made for. And
yep.
I appreciate your guys' work.
Sure.
I'm good with the list.
A lot to Dustin
Yeah.
and his staff.
Thanks,
to
Dustin.
identify all this stuff.
So, yeah, I know you did a lot of work. I don't know if you mentioned, then you used the comprehensive park plan as well with how this list was. I know you said a lot, but I just wasn't sure if that was mentioned amongst.
I didn't mention it. I mentioned it last night in the public properties, but yes.
Yeah, but I thought it might so that was also to your point earlier this evening, that comprehensive park plan that committee and you and others worked and the staff worked hard on earlier, pre-COVID, when people came to the library and put in their thoughts.
These are the items in there that are difficult to do in our normal budgeting process, and that's where the, you know, idea to take a grant fund to do the catch-up Project Botox.
And if we do it, we've got to do it right in order to get future grants.
Yeah, right. And just, I feel the need to clarify one more time too, that this is a potential grant. I don't want anyone to leave here and, you know, to get ready for the new teeter-totter. I just feel like we know this is the part of the process, and, you know, the more organized and the more that we're singing the same tune when we leave this room, the more likelihood that we'll get it. But these are very much needed in Chatham, all of them, plus many more.
So I would echo Kimsey's sentiment. We probably need to get this going ASAP, or they'll just do something else with the money.
Yeah, I think there's that potential. Hopefully that's not the case. But yeah, we move quickly and, you know, freshen up the village as folks are exiting the house from COVID.
Thank you. All right, Utility Oversight Committee discussion. And we had the thing on there. We had asked, so like, you know, it came up in a previous meeting as, you know, most of the things that come before us have been, you know, utility bill, it's been water related, it's been this, it's been that. And we kind of thought it would be good to expand our sickage, you know, audit, so to speak, of different areas of town, you know, different customers. And this is what came back from sickage. And looks as though, Pat, it's an estimate to add about 5,000 to their normal audit. Is that correct?
This will be just a separate project for them
Okay.
for $5,000.
Okay.
And kind of, it's called a agreed upon procedures engagement in the accounting world. So you look at the very last page on that's the attachment A. When you tell Sickage to go do this, what you're doing is say, we want you to do these tests, you know, A through J, test it in this. We agree, the village agrees with Sickage that they can do it, and this is what we want them to do. And at the end of it, they'll produce a short report that says we did the agreed upon procedures. You know, here's what we found.
So, in this agreement, when I look at attachment A, which would be page 7, it says the 10 people from each precinct, 5 people from July, 5 people August.
And 5 electric and 5 water.
Okay. Is it the same? Just to clarify, it'll be 5 different people.
Yes,
Okay. How are they selecting the customers? Do you know?
that's up to them.
Okay.
We could ask that they not be, you know, village staff or something like that. I'm sure that could be accommodated, I would think.
So they need to know that these are the procedures you want.
Correct.
Yeah, I read through the list of procedures, and I think it made sense as to, you know, the goal is to try to help customers ensure that the bills that they're receiving are accurate, right? Whether it be the quantity or the rate or the total amount owed.
Usage.
Sorry?
The total
Yeah, total amount owed or the quantity of services that they being billed for. It made sense to me. You know, it's a lot of money, but I think it helps, you know, the message if it's from a reputable source, you know, with an auditing firm that stands behind their findings. And I'd love another teeter-totter instead of this, but I think it would help people, you know, feel comfortable about their billings.
There's a lot of questions, so.
We'll have a utility discussion. When is Sickage looking for an answer?
Well, I was hoping, since this is only 5,000, I can sign for it.
Right.
You guys give me the okay, I'll sign the contract and
The
start.
utility committee is the one that pushed for this, so I'm sure they would be okay.
Mhm.
I'm okay with the price, but if everybody else is.
This is a timing question now.
Yeah.
Because they're, do you want to
This time of year is perfect for them because they haven't started audits.
Right.
Right.
The other time.
I was good with what they were looking at, and I was good with the price, but we need a consensus.
Yes.
You go for it.
All right. Yes, Matt. Employee survey discussion. So we've been talking about employee surveys. I've talked about doing it through SurveyMonkey. It looks like it has some costs associated with it. We also talked about the need for surveys. So, SurveyMonkey might be a thing in the future that, we want to have surveys just on the village website or whatever it may be. And so Pat and Dustin or, Parks can do surveys. But for this time, I did find an online tool that I could use to kind of test out. It would be anonymous, so to speak. It would come from my village email to every employee. It would be returned to me. The results would be returned to me. They keep their results up. You can't manipulate the results in any way. How people answer is how they answer. If they all put zeros for everything and tens for everything, it is what it is. I would hope the village employees would answer truthfully for the fact that it's going to give Pat and his staff a kind of roadmap of where are we not meeting people's expectations, where are we meeting people's expectations, and they can learn from that process. The other option was to do it where I just hand it out to every employee and then I take it back from every employee. And there'd be a couple of us involved just so, you don't want anything to be, we want it to be a truly unbiased survey where people can say what they need to say and then we try to improve off that. So Pat, only thing I would need is a list of employees and their email addresses. And then each employee, I'll send an email and it'll have the link. You go do the survey and then it reports automatically. Is everybody okay with that process? And then I'll report back to what they show, what it shows. And then if we think it's valuable, maybe we look deeper into a SurveyMonkey to where we can do a lot of, or even this company, you can do a lot of different things where you can look at specific departments and specific areas and all kinds of other stuff for a fee a month, though. I mean, that would be a charge that we'd have to decide. So, Pat, could you get me those
Greg, are you
things?
comfortable with that for the record's retention?
I guess, are you doing this as a test, or have we agreed on questions and we're just going out?
We did agree on the question. We all looked at the questions, had a chance to input, and didn't.
Do you have the, can you send me, or tell me the service that you're looking so I can read the?
Absolutely. And I can give you access to it as well.
Maybe the best thing is to have him send the emails out, the results go back to him then.
But that would be fine.
I'm happy to do that too, but I want to read the terms of service to make sure that whatever emails are going in there are not.
They're not keeping them and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I guess.
So then the other process would be me just handing them out with another trustee. Kristen, if you would help me. We just have a hand-printed copy. Whatever we get back, give to you for retention. Because are you HR or who would you?
I'm bound by the attorney-client privilege, so I would
All
have
right.
to just put it in a file and deliver it to where you receive them. I mean, that's not a problem from my end.
Well, let's do it. Let's do it physically then, just so there's not. Because I imagine the online service is going to be. I even think SurveyMonkey was going to have some terms where they're going to be able to use your email.
I get
And
really
stuff.
hesitant about that type of.
Understand. So that's why I originally was going to do it by paper and just hand them out and then collect them, put them in an envelope. They'll each be numbered, so it's not going to identify anybody, so they truly are anonymous, and then collect them back. And Kristen and I, so we're check and balancing each other, and then when we get the data, we can go through it together and then present it to the group. Does that sound good?
Is there any concerns from the collective bargaining agreements? Have you checked with them? I mean, it's just something that would be maybe a concern.
We can. I mean, it's an employee survey. I doubt. I mean, Shane, would you know if they'd have issues with an employee survey? Okay. We'll check. We'll check.
Just to make sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't think employee survey. nothing's tied to it. So it's not tied to compensation, it's not tied to discipline, it's not that, and we won't even know who you are. Now, I could,
It's not mandatory or fine. If it was mandatory, I think you'd have to.
It's not.
yeah.
Do you intend this to be mandatory, so? how-
We hope they all do it, but yeah, you can't make anybody do anything.
Do you mind if I just, if you send me a sheet before we circulate it?
Absolutely. I can.
Where would they go back to get mailed to you?
So what I would do is we'd say we'll be here at the Village Hall at 4:15, everybody can return them, and then Kristen and I will sit down here and tabulate all the things and then turn them all over to you, right?
Yeah, you could mail them actually. If now I didn't think about that, but if you just didn't put a return address, then you could say anonymous and have it go to your office or something.
You could just do the return address for the village and they could,
Yeah.
I could provide envelopes from our office.
I think people would have a problem with walking in and give you the results while you're sitting at the table and then you.
Right.
There's value in what Greg just suggested. Just put a return out, because what's the employee count right now?
53 to 55 or something.
So for
The problem
So
we're,
who opens the
$25 worth of
So the
postage.
problem we're gonna
sent to Greg.
the problem we're gonna run into though is there's not a lot of trust. And so I just don't want people thinking that it's going to be manipulated.
If their mail is a need, we can, they can be directed to not be open, and then if you want.
What about Dropbox? A locked Dropbox?
What about a Dropbox?
That wouldn't be good either. Because somebody would say that somebody here's got the key and you can go in and look at it.
If
So.
they're mailed to me, and we
Yeah.
can do it like a bid opening too, where there's three trust.
Yeah, just get it.
trustees, okay, come to my office, we'll sit in the conference room and open them.
Good by me.
That'd be better.
Okay.
Is that?
Yeah, that works.
So then we would need envelopes with just his address with postage, so they can just drop it in the mail. If I could get that, Pat, for how is it okay if we hand them out?
Probably, what's easiest if they're just a stack for them to pick up.
No, because then people could take more than one.
Right.
Through the department heads.
We wanted to number them.
No, you can't number them either then. 'Cause
Numbering would
Yeah.
there can't be any unique identifiers on them.
Right. Or just
How would that,
sure.
how would that be a unique identifier? So, I've worked in different organizations. They do an online service and they give a unique identifier. So each colleague is basically submitting a survey so that they can ramp it up into a department, but it's anonymous. So if there was numbers on it, there's no, people are grabbing it. There's no spreadsheet that says 1 equals such and such employees.
It's just, the way it would be, is if I look at, if I'm handing these out,
So
I look at, I know who has number 2, I know who has number 5.
well, Greg, the way we did it is you put it in the envelope already, you mix the envelopes up, you don't know what number's what. But that way you ensure I got 53 I handed out, I got 53 that I got back, and they're all numbered. You wouldn't know the number if it's in the envelope already. We're just handing envelopes out that have been shuffled.
And there's no number on the envelope,
No,
Just in the,
just,
on the piece of paper.
and we seal those.
Yep.
so the employee would be able to put that in, seal it. No one would be able to identify.
We could do that, and that would be a way to, so it'd be a sealed envelope, and inside that envelope would be the actual survey, and then an envelope, a prepaid envelope to my office for returning. And so then those would all be shuffled, then they'd be distributed to the employees.
Yep.
Who then open it in their own time, fill it out.
And then we give them 2 weeks to turn it back in, and in 2 weeks we meet at your office, two of us, and we go through and open them up. Sound good?
Do you want, I still want to see the sheet before.
Yep, absolutely.
And then, do you want my office to stuff them, shuffle them, and bring them in?
If you,
Watermark them.
I mean, if you could.
Yeah, we can do that, so.
Yep.
And, well, yeah, and that way it kind of stays at Storyline and out of, and we keep it random, almost like in one of the currently.
Perfect. All right. I'll get that to you, Greg.
Hey, can I ask real quick? This is probably a silly question, but who's being evaluated?
Who is just employees' experience at the village. So we all went through that. We all looked at the questions that would be asked. It's expectations, communication, all of that kind of stuff.
So it's not one specific, like,
No.
not just evaluating just the police chief, not like just the village manager, not like just.
Correct. Correct.
When was that? That wasn't,
It's been about a
last
month.
summer?
No, we just did it about a month ago.
Really?
There's, nobody has a sense of time this year.
Yeah.
In COVID world, it could have been 48 hours ago.
Forever ago. We just put it ready.
So Greg, I'll get that to you tomorrow.
Yeah, and then what I can do, Pat, if you can give me a number of employees, so we'll know how many copies to make, and we'll go through, number them.
Got it. And put them in an envelope and then put them in a return envelope that they can return. Perfect. Awesome. All right. Village manager qualifications. We put this on there for the fact that we know that Pat will be retiring at some point. He keeps telling us, not that we want him to go, but at some point Pat's going to retire. And in looking at the qualifications, you only have to make, Mayor Kimsey is or whoever's the mayor at that point, we're thinking about future. They get to a point as long as you meet the qualifications of the IAM or the municipal league, and those qualifications are barely anything. I talked to you a little bit about this, Greg, about setting a little higher standard. Nothing that would say, PhD, that where you're going to narrow the mayor's choice so much that he can't make a choice, but about having some kind of qualifications for our village manager, especially if we're growing like we're growing. We're not we are small, but we're getting out of that small range. Anybody have any ideas of what qualifications they would like to see? And then, Greg, are they okay to put on there?
So I would say, probably pretty standard would be, so bachelor's required, master's preferred would probably be something pretty standard. And, whenever it came time for something like that.
Are there any certifications that village managers typically get from you deal with a lot of municipalities. Are there any certifications that village managers achieve or get, or I know?
For a village of this size, that's not typical.
Okay.
Usually, in the village manager searches that I've been a part of, and village administrator searches, it's been done on an as-needed basis, like it was done here a few years ago, where the need arose or the need was going to occur. And so at that time, the board came up with a list of qualifications or with what they were looking for when they put it out to advertise the position. What you're talking about is a little different. It's having kind of a standard set of qualifications for the position, almost like you'd see, in your employee handbook, where this position
requires this.
This is what we're looking for, and so that being the case, you can put your required and desired qualifications out there, but for this size, I think the size of the village and the level of compensation, I think if you start looking at that certifications, those village managers are looking at places like Champaign, Wilmington,
right?
Places that are
larger,
a lot more responsibility and a lot higher compensation.
Well, we have University of Illinois Springfield right here with a great master's in public administration program. I'd probably reach out to them and see, for a like community like us, what they would, because they have a lot of candidates that go through that program that are interested in public service, and what, they might recommend.
Actually, who you should talk to is Dr. Funderburg.
Right, yeah, I know.
Planning Commission, and this is exactly what he does. So if you're really looking to try to dig into, somebody that knows what communities in that 10 to 15,000 person range are doing,
Right.
and not just doing, I think you're going to get a different perspective there because he's going to tell you what they're actually finding as available,
Right.
which is always the biggest question in any kind of search is what's available. I think you should spend some time talking with Dr. Funderburg.
And
this
he
is
left
his
the
realm.
planning commission, right? And I know
He's back.
he's back.
Yeah,
Is he back on the commission?
Yes.
He is, okay.
Yeah, he's back in town. He took a consulting.
Yeah, I knew he had like a,
So we'll try to get, so trustees, if you could gather what your ideas are, if I get his contact information from you, I'll reach out to him.
Make time.
I know the mayor of Champaign real well. I can talk to her, and see what they've looked at and how they went about that thing. And then get them all to me, and then whatever we come up, we'll come to you and say, can we do this? For the
You don't have to be in a rush, because I talked to my wife about it, and she said,
Okay.
you can work for another 4 years. So.
All right. And this isn't retroactive. This is like any future that would happen. So, all right. Email me, and I'll put them all together, and then I'll get them to Greg. Any public comments on village business?
I got a quick question if I can.
Sure.
Trustee Deppers, last year before the pandemic numbers were.
Would you mind coming up to the microphone so people, the public can
It's
hear?
clean, I promise.
That's a question for Trustee Detmers.
What is your name?
My name's Terry Hupp.
Thank you.
Last year before the pandemic worsened, you were talking about walking the neighborhood, on the west side, and, just talking to those whose homes immediately bordered the park.
Right.
And any concerns? Is that still in the plan?
Yes, it's Trustee Scherschel and I talked about it this weekend. I think the point of that would again be try to understand the folks again in the region to see what their thoughts may be for or against it. They don't care. And I was going to bring those findings back to this board to discuss. I think COVID has thrown a wrench in that. And, Paul and I have talked about whether or not people would feel comfortable with us banging on their doors. Still a plan. At least for me. I know we talked this weekend on a few changes.
yeah, no.
Yep.
I think, if we wear a mask and if people would say, no, I can't speak, maybe we just move to the next door.
Yeah.
That way we can still get the input.
You just stand in the street and yell at people. I find that they really.
Well, I just think about somebody holding their door open and it's 25 degrees outside.
Yeah.
That was my reasoning.
All right. Any other comments, questions? Can I have a motion to adjourn? No?
2C2.
Oh, do we have 2C2 or any of those things?
2C2.
Oh, hold on. I gotta go back to my procedure. Any reason we have a reason for 2C2?
Collective.
Yeah, 2C2, collective negotiating matters.
Okay. Can I have a motion to go into closed session?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Charles?
Second.
All those in favor?
Voices.
Oh, no, we need to have a roll call.
You're going to catch on. It's only been
Yeah,
3.5 years, Brett. You're going to get it.
is it slow? I thought I was done, yes.
Trustee Detmers?
Yes.
Trustee Scherschel?
Yes.
Trustee Charles?
And we will not be coming back for any other business other than to adjourn, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I'll be stopping the camera.
If everybody could, thank you for coming.